Won't you be our neighbor? Childhood is the state of being a child. Adulthood is the state of being an adult. And parenthood is the state of being a parent. See, all of these hoods are states of being, but a neighborhood is just a place that we live and not a state of being. Loneliness and isolation have reached epidemic levels. Between 1985 and 2004, the number of people with whom the average American discussed important matters dropped from 3 people to 2. The number of people who reported that they had no one with whom they discussed important matters tripled. Completely outside of our awareness, humans send and receive signals. If those signals are benign, they stimulate something called the vagus nerve. When stimulated, the vagus nerve calms us. It slows the heart and activates something called the parasympathetic nervous system. This system is also known as the rest and digest system and is the inverse to the sympathetic system, which is responsible for the fight or flight we're more familiar with. If the signals sent and received indicate psychological safety, such as empathy, emotional attunement, non-judgment, profound calming results. This unconsciously produces an override in stress hormones known as the vagal brake. Think about it like this. If you're in a car and you're pressing solidly on the brake pedal, no matter how hard you hammer on the gas, the car is not going to go anywhere. Likewise, the presence of an attuned, empathic, non-judgmental person applies the vagal brake. In spite of the acceleration of stress, we are calmed. In a stressful situation, the caregiver's calming presence mitigates stress and starts to become associated with stressful situations. If consistent enough, calming relatedness is internalized, and we're conditioned unconsciously to associate that presence with stressful situations, creating a feedback loop of stress relief. This conditioning can last a lifetime. But if somebody hasn't had these relationships, they haven't had the privilege to receive this conditioning. However, our brains are remarkably plastic. They're incredibly malleable. Through non-judgmental, emotionally attuned, empathic relationships today, each one of us can begin providing these types of relationships to anyone. And you don't need advanced education. While there is always a place for professional services, the commodification of care has led to unfortunate outcomes. Human services have had the unintentional effect of pulling relationships out of the neighborhood. We have outsourced care solely to professionals. In the professionalization of care, we are left believing that only the certified professional has the capacity to care. The thing is, we know what to do about most troubles, but at best, the professionalization of care has made us feel like we don't, and at worst, it's given us an excuse to do nothing. See, this stuff is hard, but it's not complicated. When I moved to Lincoln a few years ago, I lived next door to a family. I'd wave at them and I'd greet them anytime I saw them. The oldest son, I'll just call him Adrian, probably in his 20s, rarely returned in kind. To say he was standoffish is an understatement. But I just kept waving. 2 years ago, he was charged with first-degree murder. I scheduled a visit to see him out at the jail. I had no idea whether he would show up. I'm not a lawyer, counselor, social worker, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a professional. There was literally nothing I could do for him. But he showed up, and he talked for nearly the entire time to the random neighbor who waved at him and his family. One day, Adrian told me that every time after we get a chance to chat, he goes back to his cell and reflects on our conversations. He's incredibly honest and vulnerable about his situation every single time we meet. Won't you be our neighbor? We need to be honest that we need each other. Together, we can create a neighborhood that takes care of itself, and together, we can change a neighborhood from just a place where we live into a state of being a neighbor, one wave at a time.